This is Whiskey Whereabouts. I'm Tim, and I'm recording this a couple days after the 2024 OSWAs, the online Scotch Whisky Awards, the big live stream presentation of this year's winners. And this year, there was a pretty significant change introduced into the process that affected eligibility during the nomination process. And that change had a direct impact on the results in several of these categories, and as a result, potentially makes this the most significant OSWAs, maybe since the first one. I'm going to get into why. My whiskey journey has taken me to Scotland and back. I've explored whiskey education, tastings, and distilleries from Islay to Speyside. And now my journey continues here, with you, on Whiskey Whereabouts. So if you didn't watch a live stream announcing all the winners, the replay is available on the Aqua Vitae channel. I will put a link in the description below, and it's almost to the final category before my brief cameo that I was happy to make on the stream, as did so many of the other whiskey YouTubers that you probably are familiar with. Thanks again, as always, to Roy and Ralphie and the whole team behind the OSWAs who do so much work to not just give us a nice presentation, but one that is sort of loaded with information. So there's pie graphs and a breakdown of the percentage of all the votes. So we really have a sense of what the community is saying with their votes. And it's not like a normal award show does this, right? The Oscars don't come on the broadcast and tell us how many votes Lily Gladstone lost Emma Stone by. And that is the case here with the OSWAs. So looking over the results for, there are 8 big categories. And the first of these is the best value. And this is the first one that is impacted by this big change this year. So it's year 4, and the OSWAs created a designation. If you had won the category for 3 years, then you were awarded a trifecta award to be recognized, so you're not just passed over, but also removed from eligibility. So what does this do? What it's done is sort of remove a sort of consensus established sort of go-to answer for some of these categories and opened up the field for us to sort of see what a new consensus forms around. And that's what I was talking about before, of having a big impact, because we are seeing some new faces in some categories that had been kind of really dominated, allowing those winners to sort of be elevated up to that level. And this is the first of these. Aaron Tenure was the sort of trifecta winner. It's removed, and the the bottle that I voted for that sort of defines this category to me is this bottle here. It's a 10-year, because I can buy this bottle when I see it for less than $75. And this is quite a high quality whiskey at that price currently. But the winner was this Kilkerran 12-year, which is a very, very good whiskey. This is a bottle that I paid $100 for a while ago. Now this is a bottle that I would expect to pay $110 if I could find it. As good as it is, I don't know if this, to me, here in the US, sort of is a go-to kind of value choice. But again, the sort of global online whiskey community is voting on this and reaching a consensus. And so your market may vary, especially when we're talking about the subject of value. The next category, we get into the blended whiskey, and it's Thompson Brothers. It was a TB BSW. It's the second year running for them, edging out the McLean's Nose from Adelphi. Blended malt, even Thompson Brothers can't overcome the sort of what is really entrenched now, I think, as the sort of blended malt. Campbelltown Lock, it's J.A. Mitchell, and for $70, if you find this, has blended malt whiskey. It's not a blend, single malt whiskey from all 5 sort of, it's 3 distilleries, 5 sort of brands of Campbelltown whiskey. And these are whiskeys that can be very difficult to find the actual bottlings of. Very expensive a lot of time. This is a budget, approachable way to get a big chunk of that experience. It's really hard to topple this one. You wouldn't expect anything to overcome it until, again, it triggers that trifecta again. Best non-malt. So this is not world whiskeys. That's coming later. This was a Redbreast 12 cask strength, which is really hard to beat in the category. I believe I voted for this. It's just such a huge leap from that basic ABV to have that big ABV behind. Next category is Best Distillery, and this was a big trifecta category. Springbank has won this award for 3 years. They're off the board. Who will the consensus now form around? And the thing that I was looking out for this year was if Springbank is not on the board, is the community going to go to the next closest thing and slot in Glengyle, or was a new consensus going to form? And it certainly did, and it really shouldn't have been a shock. The rise of Ardnamurchan. So they got here really fast, but they had been trifected out of another category, Best New Distillery. So it made sense for them to be sort of in the running, but it wasn't sort of certain, of course, that they were going to sort of graduate up into that Best Distillery category, having just not only been trifected out of Best New Distillery, but had exhausted their eligibility for the Best New Distillery category. And having sort of already gotten here is a huge feather in the cap for Ardnamurchan. It's a real statement, I think, for a distillery this young to already have sort of reached the top of the mountain and having succeeded Springbank with this award. And this is what I'm talking about a new consensus having a big impact. This is something we would expect to really affect the trajectory of Ardnamurchan, and just in terms of awareness of it and people's sort of curiosity about it and interest in tracking it down. Best New Distillery was again a trifecta, but your only eligibility for Best New Distillery for a certain number of years, and so we were going to have a sort of a changing of the guard here. And there was a lot of buzz this year around a distillery from Islay called Ardnahoe. They launched their first inaugural release with a 5-year age statement. Then they launched their first sort of core range whiskey. Both were very, very well received, but I do think there was also a sense that maybe it was just a little too soon for Ardnahoe, and it was actually Islay Rassi that took the award. Again, Ardnamurchan, having won this award, is already climbed the mountain to Best Distillery. Having that is a real boost to set yourself apart. Islay Rassi in a really great position coming out of winning this award. We also had Best Independent Bottler be subject to the Trifecta Award. Signatory, not eligible. Spaces opened up again. And there's some big names in this category. Gordon MacPhail is there for now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my video about independent bottlings for beginners. I'll put a link right up here. Check that out. But Gordon MacPhail is really readily available, even here in the US. It's in most places. Cadenheads, very, very well known. Again, these are right there, getting big chunks of the vote, but couldn't catch up with Thompson Brothers, who have really, really had a good night winning these awards. So U.S. whiskey and bourbon drinkers rejoice. So the Best World Whiskey Award went to Wild Turkey Rare Breed. And this is a bourbon that is apparently, based on these results and also based on just comments from whiskey YouTubers in the UK, very, very popular and respected bourbon in the UK. I think Ralphie mentioned either on the stream from the nominations or the award stream, there may be a sort of availability and value sort of elements at work here and why it occupies this place. The big award was Best Scotch Whisky. This is the sort of big moment. Bunnahabhain 12-year cask strength is another very special whiskey because the Bunnahabhain 12-year standard is a special whiskey and a tremendous value for the quality that you're getting. But with that cask strength, it's really, really elevated. A very, very worthy winner. A whiskey sort of deserving of being put at the top of the sort of mountain for at least this year. The field was just a murderer's row. There were just so many good whiskeys in this competition. I voted for Leipzig 18, sort of in honor of it having won this year's Malt Madness, my blind tasting tournament in March. And so sort of closing out this year before I crown a new winner from my tasting tournament next year. And that's a very special whiskey that is really, really hard to acquire here in the U.S. at this point. That Bunnahabhain cask strength is not as hard to get. It is sort of limited, so you've got to get it when you have your chance, and it isn't cheap. You're going to pay $115 probably. You're getting 12-year age statement, cask strength, really high-quality whiskey. It's hard to complain about that price in this market, but the 12-year standard is a tremendous value, very, very good, and this is just taking that to the complete next level. Hope you enjoyed the sort of recap of the OSWAs. If you have not, make sure you subscribe. Big button right over here. I'll see you on the next one.